What's up, guys? Back at it again with another video here. And today we were just getting off of our Go Guru University success call, our weekly live success call. We had Robert Bache on. Robert Bache, Medicare Bob, sold his business last year, and cracking some jokes. But he's definitely living a little bit of that American dream now, where he's still working, busting his ass, but his quality of life is different. He's amassed a little bit of wealth, and we started talking about how your priorities change. Now that you've amassed your wealth, health becomes, a primary objective, longevity, quality of life, so that I can, enjoy the fruits of my labor. And so it started begging the question, does wealth follow health, or is the opposite true? And I'm not saying this is one way or the other. I'm never going to say that being healthy is going to make it harder for you to be wealthy necessarily. But there's definitely some scheduling conversation here. So as we're talking about, someone having time to be healthy, or time or money to be healthy, the resources. What is health? Diet, exercise, and then proper quality health care. Not I'm a number at a hospital, keep me alive with medicine, but actual consulting on the quality of your health care, getting blood work to see what vitamin deficiencies do I have over time, where do I need to change my diet. When you look at now think about this, you get like a thoroughbred racehorse, and you've got $1 million racehorse, and he's in the Kentucky Derby and all that stuff. They're taking blood work from that horse, and they're finding out how can they properly train him and exercise, and they're looking at his bone density. They're looking at all these different things. This is proper health care. Very difficult for somebody who's trying to amass their fortune, who has children at home, that's taking a lot of their time up, and doesn't have a lot of money yet to be that healthy or to care about it that much.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's a time conundrum, because what we all strive for and what we all are going after is living that long, healthy life, being successful. And so the first thing we have to worry about is being successful or being healthy, right? And so does health follow the wealth, or does wealth follow the health? In my personal opinion, your wealth comes first, and then the health will follow. And I say that because when you think about, uber rich people that have, unlimited amount of funds where it's not even an issue anymore. And so, that could be millions of dollars, that could be billions of dollars. But let's just put it in perspective and say that you have $5 billion. You've reached a point where you have $5 billion, or let's $10 billion, right? What is the next thing that you worry about? What do you spend all your time focusing on? Well, I'm going to spend my time trying to maintain that wealth and maintain my lifestyle that I've, like you said, like that I've cultivated. How can I maintain this? How can I live the longest and enjoy the fruits of it, my labor? So that's what you spend your time on.
It's about maintaining a quality of life for as long as possible. So it's longevity and quality.
Yeah.
And health would be probably the primary factor at that point. So I read, I can't remember, I was probably in the Marine Corps at the time, but I read an article one time that statistically broke down that there's a correlation between being wealthy and daily exercise regimen. And so I think a lot of people look at that and they think, okay, wealthy people are disciplined, so they're also in tune with their health, and so they're doing that. That was the initial thought to me, is someone who exercises daily is more likely to be wealthy because of the level of discipline. The more that I've the more successful that I've gotten over time, and the more that I've been around wealthy people, I don't believe that anymore. I actually believe that wealthy people put an insane, obsessed amount of time into the thing that made them wealthy, even sacrificing health choices. I'm talking about people that are multimillionaires and worth $100 million, that were eating at Wendy's 4 for $4s and not going to the gym and not doing any of that because they were so focused on the craft that they believed in was the medium that they were scaling. And then when they got wealthier, They now had the money to diet properly. They had the time to begin. Maybe they had a staff that they increased, so they were able to check out and work different hours. They weren't needed somewhere all the time. Or they sold their business and now they have money and they have time to go to the gym. They have to, and so some of the people I know just here, even in Tupelo, Mississippi, the wealthiest people I know, most of their job is over their phone now, their cell phone. They have all these people that work for them and they're calling and they might be yelling at them and stuff like some of the guys I know, but they're doing it from the gym. They're doing it from their house. They're doing it by the pool. They're doing it on vacation. And so their health begins to be easier. Plus they can afford, the proper ingredients for health. And you know what's funny? I was just saying before we got on here, if I can afford anything, I would absolutely pay for concierge medicine for a doctor that cared about my quality of life over the statistic of did I die or go into the hospital. I would pay for a chef. I'd pay for a chef to make all of my food, because guess what? Buying the ingredients is not just all it is. I have a wife that tries her best to keep quality food for us. But when you're dealing with kids all day and you're exhausted, and at the end of the day, you have to go and make, a finely chopped organic meal, it's a lot harder than ordering, Uber Eats, right, or running through a drive-through or making some kind of pre-made frozen meal. It's just very difficult to do that. And some people say, well, you got to commit to it. Okay, well, when you're working 70, 80 hours a week, honing your craft. And so, you can actually do it and be poor, because you're gonna spend so much of your time focused on that you're not focused on the thing that creates the wealth vertical that allows you to escape that hamster wheel of, yes, I'm healthy. And at the end of the day, what do most people get divorced over? Money problems. Yep. It ain't because they're not healthy enough. Listen, honey, you're just not healthy enough. I'm leaving. It might be a topic of conversation, but it ain't causing a divorce.
Another interesting thing that we were talking about was when you look at people, at what time in people's life do they acquire wealth, or most people that have wealth, what time in their life was that acquired? Was that in their 20s? Was that in their 30s, 40s, 50s? And I think we kind of settled in that most people are obtaining wealth in that 40s, mid 40s to 50 range, right? Like somewhere in there. And then another aspect of it that we discussed was, well, at that time in your life, your kids are grown. They're probably gone off to college or done with college, but they're out of your hair now. Now you have money, and so you have all this time. So what is the next thing that you focus on? My kids are healthy, they're grown, they're off, they're doing their own thing, I have money, and so now I need to perfect my own health. And so now my health is a priority. That's my biggest obsession now, is getting healthy and maintaining that health as long as I possibly can. And who do you
see doing this the most? We said it before, and this is, I think I see 45, 50-year-old women, stay-at-home mothers, end up getting in really good shape at that time.
In the best shape of their life in their 50s.
They've reclaimed all this time that they've been spending with children, and some of them working and having children, and now all of a sudden they have this vacuum of time that they're used to committing to something else. And a lot of them start spending it on health, focusing on working out.
Yeah, it's funny that it got brought up today, because I was having the conversation with Sid and Jeff and a couple of guys in the office the other day, and I mentioned the exact same thing. And I was just saying, in my perspective, if I obtained, my set goal of money, where it wasn't an issue anymore, what would be the next thing that I worry about? What would be the next thing I focus on all the time? And I think that would be my health and how to maintain it. Yeah. So
I think there's a building blocks concept out there of, the things that you have to get right in life. And one of the foundational pillars is financial. And so some people think that's budgeting. Some people think that's, figuring out how to live within your means and all that. And I think
a minimalist lifestyle.
There's probably some truth to that, depending on what someone's goals are. I was watching Grant Cardone he reposted a video of him on Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast. And one of the guys had a really good question for Grant. He said, because Grant was telling everybody, be hyper aggressive, invest, entrepreneurial spirited concepts, one of the co-hosts said, "Well, what about the nurse who just wants to make $65,000 a year and go home and watch Grey's Anatomy or whatever, and has a puppy dog or a cat and just wants that normal lifestyle?" And Grant actually said that society has lied to that person that is attainable, because living that moderate lifestyle isn't. It's not going to exist anymore. The gap is widening, rich and poor. And people that have that I'm going to be average lifestyle mindset are just going to get poorer.
Yep.
And the other people are going to suck up all the income. And so now middle class isn't 65,000, it's 200,000. And that's happening.
It's very much happening. I mean, even in our industry, like we're seeing Medicare premiums and things like that rise, but that's across the board. I mean, we're seeing it firsthand, but that's a trickle-down effect that's going to continue to happen. Inflation is going to continue to rise, and we're already seeing it with cost of food, right?
Yeah.
The average cost of food has went up like 30% or something already. It's ridiculous, but I mean, that is becoming more and more true as we push forward with, everything that we've got going on in the world today.
You guys, and if you consume too much media, too, I'm afraid there's somebody out here that's saying, "Oh, inflation's not that bad. I read a CNN Money article, or I read an NBC or an ABC article." Listen, guys, no matter what your politics are, pay attention to the opposing media as much as the one that's trying to make it sound good right now. So if you have Biden supporting media, and this is not political for me, but if you have Biden supporting media telling you how to think, they're trying to stoke the flame that is pro their cause. If you have Trump in office, like, when he was in office, maybe do listen to some of the opposing things. Maybe don't just listen to Fox News, and maybe they're just cheerleaders for the way things are going. That happens. And so right now, and I bring this up because if you go and Google inflation, there is a barrage of indoctrinating media trying to tell you that inflation is not bad. Horse shit. It's bad unless you own businesses and you can begin to soak up some of that concept. There's a thing about inflation is whoever can capture the money as it's rising, their value of what they're capturing increases at an amount that at least offsets the inflation. So if you have, like Said's going out and doing wedding photography, right? Said over time should be able to charge more for that wedding photography because the value of the dollar is getting lower. Okay, so he has an apparatus to increase that. If you're a nurse who just wants to watch Grey's Anatomy and has a puppy dog and she lives in a little apartment, her ability to increase what she's taken from the whole pie is up to the hospital that she works at. Sid can increase his wedding photography. Now, he might have, for a minute, he might have a hard time getting it. But the thing is, all of those wedding photographers are going to do it over time because their expenses are higher. It's going to cost them more to get a camera. It's going to cost them more to live.
So that's a niche down example, but I think that applies to every industry because every industry, they're all businesses, right? And what is the main goal of the business is to maximize profits. And if their overhead costs are going up, you think they're just going to eat the cost and keep the same prices and say, well, now we're going to make less profit because we had to pay more for our resources. No, they're going to pass that cost on to the end consumer. They're going to raise prices, and so that's raising everything across the board. And again, food right now is one of the immediate things impacted by it, and the cost is going up. But there's a bunch of examples of that across the board. And so, like you said, to downplay it and say, like, inflation is not a thing right now, that is BS because inflation is very much a thing right now, and it's happening across the board. With everything, boats staying out, regardless of the reason, right? Boats being locked at sea because they don't have enough employees to offload the boats, and they don't have COVID-19 causing not enough employees. So it's a trickle down effect, regardless of the reason it's happening.
Yeah, so for a long time, there's been a polarizing concept. It's funny you say trickle down. So trickle down economics is a polarizing concept. There's actually Democrat media created the concept of trickle down economics to throw off what Republicans were saying is that if there's more prosperity, it will trickle down. And so they said, well, it's not true, right? Well, now the negative aspect of it is also a trickle down. If the person who is owns the loading docks and the cargo ships. So I actually know a guy named Perry that lived next to my dad. He had lived next to him when he lived in McClellanville. Had a real nice beach house. Very wealthy guy. He's one of the guys that owns these docks that on board and off board. The cargo, right? He's having a problem hiring these people, so he's going to have to pay more, because there is a point where if he offers enough money, he'll get people to do it. Okay, that's what happens. If you're having a labor shortage, and I can't pay people enough to do this. You can pay people enough to do anything, like even things that people shouldn't do for money. If you throw enough money at somebody, you're going to find people to do it, right? So if they're going to do that, it's going to cost more, and that cost is going to circulate into the cost factor that then causes goods to go up, and it's going to trickle down, increasing prices. And then you're told that that's evil, that businesses have to increase their prices to turn a profit. But at the same time, it's going to trickle down because the wages just increase for those people. So it all does trickle down. There is absolutely a trickle down effect. And we've gotten off top of the beginning, but this is how these ramblings go. But from your perspective, what I'm talking about, it's not to be political. It's that to navigate things to the best of your ability, you do have to focus on the wealth building side, because it is the foundational building block, and you have to understand that what wealth is changing. And if you have zero apparatus, I'm not saying you have to be a billionaire, but you have to have an apparatus to collect wealth, or you are going to get poorer.
Yeah, and you can't be complacent, right? Like we did get off topic, but to tie that back into what we were originally talking about, you can't be complacent with what we're doing, especially if you consider yourself an entrepreneur or a business owner or an independent, right? I have to be striving to scale, to grow my business. I can't put my business there and then kick my feet up and be like, yep, I've got a business now. It's on autopilot. We're just going along. Well, that's great in thought. But if you're not keeping up with what we're talking about, the inflation, the cost of goods, and you're not always striving to accumulate more and more wealth and grow your business, you're not getting anywhere. You've got to stay ahead of the curve, and again, complacency is probably the root of the evil in that. So
I would say complacency is the root of all evil, yeah. Not money. The pursuit of money or love of money. Love of money is a bad thing, but the pursuit of money is not a bad thing. The pursuit of money is the pursuit of the resource that everything that you need is. Your health, you need money. To be able to do good for your kids, you need money. Right. To be able to just keep up with your current quality, you actually need more money, because you're making $65,000 a year is not going to be making $65,000 a year 10 years from now. Making $112,000 a year is going to be, or that's just an example, but you have to make more just to make the same. You can't just coast. It doesn't exist. If you're not growing, you are shrinking, and your health, everything is dependent on it. And it's all part of the same conversation, and that's why it evolves to that. Because to get your money right, to get your health right, you have to get your money bigger than you thought you did before.
Right. Well, and you can't just say, I make $100,000 now, because if you've been in the business for a long time and your goal was to make $100,000 20 years ago, that would have went a lot. That would have went a longer way, right? Gas was $1 and milk was 50 cents or whatever, right? So $100,000 20 years ago would have meant a lot more to you than it's going to give you now, where it's almost going to be next to nothing now. I mean, it's not the same. So continue to grow your business, continue to drive, for that next step in what you're doing, and I think you'll be able to keep up with it.
Yep. Have an apparatus to collect money. What does an apparatus collect money? Any business.
A business, yeah.
Any business, and real estate, whatever, anything that is a business, that's what collects it. If you're part of somebody else's business, try to do it in a way that allows you to collect part of the upside potential of that business. And, if you have a job where you're making good money, invest that money in something that is a business or that will grow over time. Invest it. Don't just sit there and think I can make $65,000 a year and just live paycheck to paycheck. That ain't living. And you can't live that way forever. So if you live that way forever, I have in-laws right now that God, I'm afraid they're going to try to piggyback off of us down the road, because then I can see them not preparing for the shelf of retirement that's coming.
Yeah.
You see people at 55 years old buying a new house, living in terrible health because they can't focus on their health because they don't have wealth. And I'm sitting there seeing that they're going to be 10 years into a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, and they're not going to be able to work at the current capacity they are now. They're going to have to go on Social Security because they haven't saved anything. And then what? And these are financial cliffs that are crazy, and they're all over the place because they've been told to buy a house, buy a house, buy a house. If you're going to buy the house and live the middle class lifestyle, do it when you're 25, so that by the time you're 55, you at least have the damn thing paid off.
And that's nothing. Your bank's coming to you and say, hey, we're looking at this, and in 30 years you're going to be 75, you're going to be 85.
They're saying we'd be happy to take 10 years of payments, repo the house, and resell it at its current market value.
Yep, they're in the business to make money, so they're not putting that thought in your mind because they don't want to scare you off from not buying the house. They want you to buy the house.
And they also know, just like in 2008, if you default on it, that they'll just get to collect more taxpayer dollars from the Federal Reserve, get bailed out, because you have to bail them out, because if you don't, you have the Great Depression, right? Yep. So the whole thing. So anyway, the point is, you cannot think like a lower middle class. I just want to be happy. I just want to do. Happiness is completely tied to your wealth. Your health is completely tied to your wealth. The wealth is the root of it. And it's not me being evil saying that. It's me being honest with you that billionaires are healthier because they're wealthier, not the opposite. Other than maybe a bodybuilder that got famous bodybuilding, or a professional athlete. And if you're watching this and you're a professional athlete, you don't even need to be watching this. Just don't spend your money too quickly, okay? Because you have a shelf life. But that's the way it is. So hope this helps somebody out there understand what we're talking about and go out and be a little bit more aggressive. Find that overdrive, because you cannot, especially from 20. People tell me all the time, you need to take it easy and spend more time with your kids. I get it. I want to spend as much time with my kids as possible. I do. But if I'm a huge burden to them down the road and I didn't provide for them, sometimes that's a little bit of a cop-out. Sometimes that's people wishing that they did that or whatever. But I don't really see really wealthy people telling me that. It's normally people that didn't kick it in overdrive themselves. No, you're going to miss. Yeah, look, you're going to miss your kids being 9 years old, whether you spend every day with them or not. It's sad. When your kids get older, when they're 10, who they were when they're 5 doesn't exist anymore, no matter how much time you spent with them. You can't keep it. I want to spend time with them. But I can spend a lot more time with them when I have money than when I'm broke as shit, living in a trailer. But like, look how much time we get to spend together. And they're like, Daddy, this sucks.
The time we spend together sucks.
This just sucks. My friend Johnny, his dad's got a boat. I'm like, yeah, he works a lot, though. I want you to work a lot. The grass is always greener on the other side. But I can tell you, it's a lot easier when you have some money and you can increase that wealth over time, so that you can offset the fact that the world's getting more expensive to live in. So, in my opinion, that we're going to name part of this video, we'll probably cut it up. Does wealth follow health? But in my opinion, and I think Stephen's opinion, health follows wealth. Spiritual, enlightenment follows wealth and health. It's like a chain of events. And we got to start telling these damn kids, in high school, 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old, you need to start acquiring wealth. And I'm not meaning saving money. I'm meaning building something, a business, building some kind of piece of technology, whatever the hell it is that makes you money forever, or for a lot of money for a short period of time, so that then you can worry about all these other things. And if you try to start that pursuit at 45 or 50, well, now you're too far down the shitty health chain that you don't have time to acquire the wealth because you're going to have a damn heart attack.
Yeah, and I think if there is a message, like if there is any young people or young kids out there watching, I think a big thing is like being an influencer online and gaining popularity. That's great if you can do that, but use that as a launch pad to start something else. Use that as a launch pad to, initiate another business. Use your influence to gain that wealth that we're talking about.
Yeah. And if it's a business that really helps somebody, because there's a lot of businesses that start overnight and they're kind of like get rich quick schemes, and they do. Some people end up scaling them. I think some of these call centers in the Medicare space are not long-term good business models, and I think they'll fail over time. Did somebody make $400 million really quick out of it? Maybe. But I think when you're building a business, in the name of capitalism, for God's sakes, build a damn business that provides value to its employees and its consumers. And that's what'll stand the test of time, and it'll be good for the country, it'll be good for the world, and it'll be good for you.
It'll be good for you, it'll be good for me, it'll be good for the economy.
It'll be good. Yeah, it's good for everybody, like Marshall Silver said. So, but if you're building a business that's just sucking money up and it's bullshit, then that's not good for anybody. It's not good for the name of what we're trying to preach in capitalism. Capitalism is good when it's not crony and full of crap. And I think sometimes the VCs and the publicly traded money that's getting infused in it can kind of screw it up because it's creating an unrealistic concept of what's good. But those create bubbles. So you think of, I'm going to build a 100-year business based on value, not based on how can I get rich quick by fooling people with fake reports. You better cash out at the right time in that kind of model. Anyway, guys, I hope this is helpful. We'll be doing a lot more ranting like this because, it's fun. So I hope you enjoy it because it's coming. Thanks.
Thank you.